Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. And Patrick, we have at least the traveling group and the likely players that will be on the opening day roster. And obviously, the big one that we'll get to right away. Matt Shaw was told he is going to Japan. Uh, this isn't shocking, but it also there was a question because of that injury. What did you hear from Arizona, and what was the message you got?
Well, I think it was going to be one of the last and biggest decisions, and that certainly played out. I feel like when I tapped in for you in Mesa, it was kind of like I went in thinking, is he really going to have enough time? Like, are the Cubs really going to force it on the 40-man roster? And the message I got back was like, look, he's a healthy player. This is the guy that they want to be their third baseman. But then, as you know, this group, as they kind of talk and circle around these things, I got indications that it could have been Kevin Alcantara. Like that, I thought was very interesting as they play these things out of, well, what if PCA runs into a wall, the first exhibition game? How are they going to cover center field? And I will give Alcantara props, man. That guy has a great attitude. Like if you saw him in the clubhouse, you'd be like, oh, this guy's making the team. And he was probably just told he's staying home. But I mean this as a total compliment. Like Shaw was very stone-faced the whole time. He packed.
Very Nico-like.
Yes, exactly. He's told to pack Monday. He did. Kevin was told to pack as well. There was not 2 seats on the plane for both of them. And so ultimately, it was one of those things where the likely outcome was Matt Shaw. We just had the oblique issue. We had the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. We had this kind of doomsday scenarios that they were kicking around. But I think it's telling how much they think of this guy that they sort of rushed him. He said, look, I've been here since New Year's Eve. Like, I'm ready for this. I've been waiting my whole life for this. But to, I don't know, not give a guy who has 35 games above AAA, at AAA, never made his major league debut before, did not have a full spring training, and he requires a 40-man ad. I mean, that just shows you how high they are in this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking it up right now. 6 games in spring training, 19 plate appearances. That's what he is going to head to Japan with. That's not a lot for. I mean, if like I think we brought this up before. Like if you're talking about Ian Happ, if you're talking about Dansby Swanson, it's a very different situation. Matt Shaw has never played a game in the big leagues. He has 35 games at the AAA level. 35, 152 plate appearances, and they must really think highly of him.
Yeah.
And makeup wise, right? They just must think he can handle it. His body is obviously ready. They would not push him if they had any physical concerns. I think the mental part is what I think is I'm seeing them like clearly give him a vote of confidence that this guy is ready mentally for the big leagues. I'm curious to see how he does. I try not to look at spring training stats. He did fine. He looked like the guy that he's always looked like. Maybe he's just that guy. Maybe that's who he is. He's just this guy that, puts up like well above average offensive numbers, plays good enough defense, doesn't strike out a ton, walks a decent amount. If he's that guy that, like all that disappointment about not signing Alex Bregman goes out the window, right? If you have this guy, if this is your guy, that you can kind of like trust to handle at least one of the infield spots. Who knows? Like, who knows what moves they need to make in the future? Who knows what the future holds? But I'm just saying, like, he's an infielder of the future. That's a big deal for this team. I think they, not just for 2025, you talk about beyond, they need pieces to build around that are going to be around for a while. He seems like someone that they really trust when it comes to that. I want to see how he handles Tokyo, but the Dodgers staff. There's a lot going on. Like this is a big moment for him, and how he handles it all, and what is going through his head right now, I think will tell us a lot as far as his future. But it's a nice moment for him. How did he did you get a chance to talk to him? You guys talked to him after the decision was made, right?
Yes.
What was the reaction?
A couple of us spoke to him after Tuesday's game, before the team departed from Mesa for the airport, and he was very matter of fact. I mean, you've talked to him before. He is an impressive guy. He's pretty sharp. That's been his reputation, really, like coming out of high school, going to Maryland, that is someone who's very focused, who's all about the details. And he just sort of shrugged and said, this is a nice moment. But, he's got to go out there and prove it. He said, I haven't seen any lineups for game 1 yet. I think, just to clarify one thing, because as you know, the roster scenarios have been confusing, and granted, we get to, our editors love the roster projections because our readers love roster projections. We've been able to kind of milk it but it's a good format to try to explain some very complicated scenarios that, as long as there's no injury, he's on the opening day roster, just with how they structured it of 14 position players. You can only carry 13 against the Dodgers, and one of those 14 is an emergency third catcher who they hope does not touch the field at all during a real game at the Tokyo Dome, in Reese McGuire. So Shaw is on it unless something unforeseen happens. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes sense. And yeah, it's there's a lot of implications as far as rookie of the year voting, extra draft. We can talk about that in the summer if it becomes relevant. Right now, it's just great moment for the kid. Looking forward to seeing him debut in Tokyo, and then how he performs all season long. I think it's going to be is he the X factor of the season? No, I don't think so. But I think it's very relevant because of how the Alex Bregman stuff played out, and how badly the front office kind of wanted to get that done, and how they kind of saw that as a moment for them. Like I said before, I just think if he has a good season, it just eases a lot of their frustration of not being able to get Bregman done. All right, Patrick, we'll move on to other players that made the roster. Before we do that, let's get to a quick break.
Kratz, do you like spending an hour on grocery shopping?
Nope. Speed up the process, please.
Introducing Hungry Root to the FT fam.
Now we can all be bougie with our own personal shopper to handle the food shopping, including recs based on what you're looking to put in your body.
I stack my Hungry Root box with items like gluten-free, dairy-free blueberry waffles for breakfast, shrimp veggie bowls for lunch, and a little filet mignon with potatoes and broccolini for dinner.
You can also say just, hey, Hungry Root, I eat paleo, or I'm vegetarian, and they load up your cart with personalized recommendations.
And those recs keep evolving as they learn about what you're into. Also, no BS, as in no artificial sweeteners or preservatives in any of Hungry Root's food. You're going to love Hungry Root as much as FT does. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/FT and use code FT. That's hungryroot.com/FT, code FT to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life.
All right, Patrick. Another infielder. I think this is one of the better stories. These are all good stories, I guess. But this one, Gage Workman, Gage Tater Workman, he earns a spot with it. I mean, it was a great spring. I just said don't let's not take too much away, but certain players, they have to perform to make it, right. And I think my first day in Arizona, Jesse Rogers asked Craig Counsell about Gage Workman because he hit a home run, and I believe it was an opposite field home run. He's a lefty. He's a big guy. He's 6'4", 6'6". He's a big dude.
6'3", 6'4", legit.
Okay.
6'3",
Yeah.
6'4", yeah.
And you see him and you're yeah, that's an athlete. And he's, good defensive infielder, third baseman. Craig Counsell. We've talked to Craig Counsell now for over a year, and if you can play defense, he'll stick with you. He'll trust you. He'll give you a shot. This kid hit all spring long. I like the story. Who knows? It's a Rule 5 pick. One slump, and you have to start wondering, is he going to get enough at bats if he's a bench guy? So many questions, but right now it's a nice story.
And that to me was part of the uncertainty about Shaw, was just the way that Counsell raved about Workman's defense. And I had that in the back of my head too, of like his patience level goes through the roof if you can go play defense every single day. And we'll see where it goes. I got to give a shout out to our buddy Jordan Bastian of MLB.com, because he and I were waiting for Workman, coming off the field. And we had a nice chat with him. And Jordan said something like, Tater, huh? What's the deal with that? Workman said, like, it's my middle name. And Jordan's like, I know. That's why we're asking. And it was just a hilarious back and forth. Maybe you had to be there, but it was his grandfather's nickname. I think someone had mispronounced a name somewhere along the way. Tater stuck. And so Workman's dad was like, well, Tater's a family, as family importance, and it's a great baseball name. We'll go with Tater. And so Workman, interestingly enough, the best man at his wedding was Brennan Davis, the former Cubs prospect. They went to high school together. Gage's dad, Wid, was prominent in like kind of their local baseball community. The families became very close. Gage's father was once drafted by the Cubs. I believe he was drafted maybe 4 times. He pitched in the Dodgers and Padres farm systems. So like, someone who grew up around the game, who we'll have to look into this if Workman like sticks, but it's kind of surprising he never really made a AAA in the Tigers organization. I think it was most of the last 3 years at AA. But this is what the Cubs have really been searching for a long time. If they could get a left-handed hitting third baseman, that's kind of been on their board for a while now. And if, I don't know, like you said, it's spring training, who knows, but
right.
I think they're going to give him a pretty long leash and find ways to they think Counsell's direct quote was like, he's a functional piece on this roster. And maybe it's running to the corner outfielders if they need a backup shortstop for whatever reason before Nico gets back, play third. Like, an interesting player, just makes you wonder why you never got a chance while the Tigers were rebuilding there.
Yeah, I mean, he struck out a lot in the minors, and he barely struck out this spring. I have no clue if something changed. I'll be honest when I say I just wasn't going to dig in that far. If that strikeout rate sticks in, after a month or two, then it's something worth digging into and seeing like what's he changed? Why is this strikeout rate suddenly plummeted? Right now it doesn't matter. Like there's this, so Baseball Reference does this thing where they have opponent quality for spring training, and his is at 7.1, which is basically like a tick above AA. But that's basically what everyone's is. Like I was looking up like other regulars like Pete Crow Armstrong or Dansby Swanson or Ian Happ. They're all around that, like a tick above AA. That's just what you're going to face. Like that's spring training. So it's really hard to evaluate this stuff. Just for comparison's sake, because he's a hot name this spring, Cam Smith with Astros. He had like a 6.7 opponent quality rate. So worse. Like, and he just destroyed everyone, and everybody's anointing him like, the greatest prospect ever. Right.
Because he is.
Yeah. and he may very well be a really good player. I'm not taking that away from him. I'm just saying, I don't know. Like, I don't know what any of these guys are. This is the biggest problem with spring training. And I won't we don't need to like digress it and go into this, but I see it on Twitter, and it's why part of the reason why I probably need to stop. It's probably a straw man because it's not a real concern among Cubs fans, but I am seeing people say like, what's wrong with Kyle Tucker? It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter. It's spring training. You know, remember Dansby Swanson, how awful he was his first spring training, and then didn't he start that season like 10 for 12 or something crazy? Like, he just got
he had
off
a huge debut with the Cubs too. Yeah.
Right. He was 6 for his first 8, something stupid like that. Like, he had a hit, like, multi-hit every game for multiple days in a row. Yeah, it's so like, I'm not going to go crazy with these spring stats, but it's a nice story and like cool name, good ball player, all the fun stuff. Let's see what happens. And then I agree with Counsell. What we said that Counsell said, like, he's a functional piece of the puzzle. Like, it probably stunts his development. It probably, like, he's not an everyday player, and maybe if they could option him and tweak something, and this swing and miss is legit, maybe their AAA would be really good for him. Who knows? All I know is that, like, he's made the team, and like he has some sort of use here, and I think that's a nice story. Another one, which not someone out of the blue in the sense that he's pitched and produced in the big leagues. Brad Keller makes the pitching staff. Brad Keller is a Chicago Cub. He opened eyes right away from that first outing. You say not to take much away from stats. It's not stats. It's when you're throwing 97 in your first outing in the spring, and you have a breaking ball. It's like, wait, what's going on here? How often did this dude sit 97, sit 96, 97? Not that much. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this is a guy that changes the way the bullpen looks, but shoot, like, if you're throwing like that, if you're pitching like that, you have a chance to be one of those surprise bullpen arms that the league takes notice of.
I'm with you. I think some of the stuff we see in spring training on the pitching side can be a little more instructive, of just like, particularly when, I mean, I think that was your first story when you got down to spring training this year, of like the changes he made, kind of the backstory behind it, how interested the Cubs were. Like, this is a guy that, even though it was only a minor league deal, even though it'll only convert to $1.5 million, like, this was a targeted guy they wanted this offseason for a specific role. And the way Counsell talks about it is, come out of the pen, he can pitch multiple innings, but they're looking at shorter stints, and maybe if he does well with that, you go to higher leverage situations. So I said to Craig, I said, so like an out getter? And he like, he's like, right back at you. The warm embrace of a Craig Counsell one-liner there. So yeah, look, it's an interesting guy, particularly, the Royals had that time when he came up, and he had some good seasons too. Like, he had some really nice performances for them, but was not the most like pitching savvy organization. And then, so, from there to go to the White Sox, the worst team in the history of baseball, and they DFA you in May. Well, then you wind up in Boston, a Red Sox operation that is overseen by Craig Breslow, who had built the Cubs pitching infrastructure here, or had a major role in it. So you can start piecing like some things together here. I mean, he's 6'5". You see the velo now, they can introduce some new stuff with him. Like, again, we don't know, but it sounds like they're going to give him a really long runway here. And we don't know exactly when he'll be added to the roster. Like, theoretically, I think he could, pitch in exhibitions, maybe be inactive, whatever sort of arrangement they have. Like, they talk about him as he earned it.
Yeah. And like you said, like, I feel like we can take a little bit more from pitching in the spring. There's always big surprises. If you're going to look for one, and like kind of feel like semi good about it, I think he's someone you kind of like circle and pay attention to early in the season. See if what he did in the spring kind of carries over. Real quick before we wrap up, so that means there's going to be 2 40-man moves. Brad Keller, Matt Shaw. What indication do you have? I think there's one obvious one with who stayed back, but I like what are you reading in Arizona? What kind of vibe did you get?
Definitely that it seems like Keegan Thompson is on his way out. However, they choreograph that. I mean, not making the travel roster when they take 17 pitchers. He's out of minor league options, so they don't have to make a move on, in the middle of March yet, whatever day it is, but that is coming. So I would expect Keegan's time to end. And then part of this too is like waiting to see who gets hurt, right?
Yeah,
that's like Council's big thing, and Jed as well, of like, let's not make a decision until we have to. I would also think too, there's probably a guy on the pitching side you could move, probably someone back in Arizona. So we'll get into it in the next episode, but like this whole process, you were there, like hearing them kind of game out scenarios and what it could be and all the roster implications. It's been a lot. So I think maybe we'll see once they kind of roll out of bed and head towards the Tokyo Dome, they can keep just kind of reassessing. And to Council's point, like that's what they do during the season. It's every day. It's just that you're locked into these 31 while you're there, and there's not that shuttle from AAA Iowa running. It's like those are the 31 you got. Figure it out and like pray that there's no extra inning games or crazy injuries or like Cubby occurrences on the streets of Tokyo.
Oh dear, I don't even want to know what those would be. All right, Patrick, we'll be back at it shortly from Tokyo. And thanks so much for listening. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. We appreciate all of you for listening. Thanks, and take care.